In today's video, so I made a personal commitment to myself to not only be a critic of things that are happening around me, but also in the loud expanse of all the voices around, I should also lend my voice to finding solutions and trying to properly digest information that we obtain, things that are around us, so that we can find ways to move. So with that in mind, one of the series that I am embarking on is about natural resources in my country, which is Ghana. And if you didn't know, or if you, I know many people do know, Ghana is very rich with a lot of natural resources. But due to a myriad of circumstances, things aren't particularly as great as you would expect for a country that has so much to offer in terms of natural resources. So much to offer itself, to be honest. So in today's video, I'm going to embark on the first part of my series into our natural resources, and I'm going to be having a preliminary conversation about cocoa or cacao, depending on where you're from. Now, if you didn't know, Ghana and Ivory Coast are together the two largest producers of cocoa or cacao globally. I mean, the two countries are responsible for 60% of global cacao or cocoa production. I'm going to call it cocoa from now. That's what it is. They produce 60%. Now, Ghana specifically used to be the champ, but Cote d'Ivoire overtook it, and significantly. Using Statista, I think 2022, certain statistics from Statista in 2022 show that Ghana produces about 20% of the world's cocoa requirements or needs, and Cote d'Ivoire actually provides 40%, which is stunning, absolutely stunning. Now, if you're in Ghana, you know about cocoa, you know about the many things that cocoa is used to producing in the country. And you also know that cocoa is one of the biggest cash crops that Ghana has. I think it is the biggest cash crop. I could be wrong, but yeah. It is a product that has a regulatory body called Cocoa Board. And Cocoa Board's responsibility, one of its many responsibilities, is to regulate the production and sale of cocoa. So if you didn't know this, in Ghana, there are certain rules and legislations. Now, I haven't done a thorough technical breakdown. Like I said, this is just an introduction, a preliminary purview into the entire conversation. Hopefully, I'll get some specialists who will be willing to have this conversation with me, and then we can have a chat. But yeah, so this regulatory bodies, one of its many jobs is to ensure that the cocoa, any cocoa beans that are produced in a country, go through them before they are sold. So if you didn't know this, every cocoa tree is kind of owned by the country to a certain degree. So if you produce cocoa beans, you are not allowed legally to sell them on your own merit. You're supposed to sell them to Cocoa Board, and then Cocoa Board sells it to all the other people. Now, many people have different sentiments about why this is great or why this isn't great. And initially, I was on the side of why don't we just decentralize the entire process, and we don't need a regulatory body and everything. But I spoke to certain people that I know in the industry, and they actually opened my eyes to the fact that Cocoa Board was actually not as villainous as I would have liked to perceive, based on the countless scandals that they may have been involved in. But the main thing is that even Cote d'Ivoire came to replicate our Cocoa Board system to instill it in their country. That should show you that there is some merit to the existence of Cocoa Board. I mean, its inability to properly, I think, turn a profit, that's what I'm hearing, like I said, preliminary conversation. Its inability to turn a profit is interesting, considering you produce 20% of global cocoa needs, and then you are not able to turn a profit is very weird. But let me also point out the fact that Cocoa Board or cocoa in Ghana generates revenue. That's the point. it generates revenue, but cocoa board in itself hasn't particularly been able to turn a profit. There are two very different things in that statement, because cocoa board is able to generate revenue from the sale of all of its all of the cocoa beans. I mean, recently we heard about certain release from cocoa board bonds and stuff like that. So you can tell that, yes, it is, I wouldn't call it profitable, but it is generating a revenue. But then when you say profit, it means that its expenditure, it's not able to generate new income to a certain degree. That's a whole different conversation, and that's here. I was going to say it's neither here nor there, but that's here. But that's something we'll focus on at another time, and hopefully I can get some industry experts to explain all of that. Now, the conundrum Ghana faces when it comes to cocoa is the fact that we produce so much cocoa, and I think it's similar to Cote d'Ivoire. We produce so much cocoa, but we don't consume enough for the global market, and based on the rules of economics, to pay us a premium for our cocoa, because just economic principles, one of the simplest economic principles in the world is supply and demand. When there's a higher supply and there's a low demand, prices of the things just go down. When there's a higher demand, lower supply, prices of things shoot up. That's just basic econs, right? Now, when we throw that basic rule into cocoa, we realize that because Ghana in itself doesn't consume as much cocoa, majority of it is just made for the foreign market, which means that we are beholden to the foreign market, because otherwise the cocoa beans will just be there and just rot, because we don't have the capacity to consume that much of the beans. But if we did have that capacity, we could ask for a premium price, because if they don't buy it, we do have a use for it. Now, some of you may be saying that, okay, we make chocolates and stuff like that. Yeah, that is not much. I will find out what quantity of cocoa Ghana consumes. I know it's not much. I remember having this conversation. I don't remember the exact figure. I'll check it out. But it's insignificant. And this is largely because the products that cocoa are turned into in this country are luxury products. Now, certain companies like Niche Chocolate are doing their best to try and make chocolate affordable. But at the end of the day, if I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago, if the basic income of each person, minimum wage is about 10 cedis or 11 cedis or 12 cedis, I don't know. It's under 15 cedis last I checked, which is a while ago. Then it would be crazy to ask a person a day, that's 50 cedis a day. It would be crazy to ask a person to spend potentially, because I know there are certain chocolate products, I have actually tried them, they're actually quite good, from Food Research, I believe. I hope all the Cocoa Research Institute, one of the two, that have made a chocolate product that is going for potentially, what I heard was 5 cedis, and I've tried it. It's actually pretty good. The ginger one is actually quite good. But if 5 cedis is about a third of a person's daily income, that's wild to ask a person to fork off that money so that we can increase our consumption, which is where I come into governments playing into getting us to consume more cocoa. And I think that the way government is trying to go about it is, it's not going to work, because if we have things like cocoa butter, we have things like chocolate drinks and stuff like that, which are not cheap. Like I'm saying, are not cheap. How are you going to encourage people or your local consumers to consume more of this product when they can't afford it? Like, even if they did want to, they just can't afford it. And it goes back to the historical precedent of cocoa in our country. Based on the little research I've done, cocoa in Ghana has always been a cash crop. So now the thing about a cash crop is that it is grown for foreign markets, or for sale immediately. It is not grown for local consumption per se. So for instance, cassava is not a cash crop to a certain degree. Could be. have had certain conversations with certain people, and it could be, but it's consumed locally. So with something like cassava, it's growing more for the local markets, and then the surplus is what is sold. But with cocoa, that's not the case because Ghana culturally does not have any didn't have a lot of exposure to cocoa long enough to develop unique recipes and unique use cases for the cocoa and the cocoa beans. Because when it came to the country and how good it was, we just wanted to export this commodity. And that is the double-edged sword that we face. Because at the end of the day, yes, it is generating a revenue, but now we need to consume more. But we never have time to really study this food product to be able to develop our own local recipes. Because if you go to South America, there are lots of local recipes, and quite a number. South Americans actually do consume a lot of their own cocoa locally. So if you want that specific cocoa bean, you might probably have to pay something slightly different because they're fine consuming their stuff. Maybe they may not be able to consume all of it, but they do consume a significant percentage of it. And that is where Ghana kind of fumbled the bag. But in fumbling the bag, like I said, the colleagues, people I've spoken to made me realize that the existence of the cocoa board to regulate this thing was very important because in Cote d'Ivoire, without the regulatory body, there was a lot of chaos when it came to the cocoa market, especially when it came to pricing and stuff like that. So you can see that the cocoa board was created with good intentions, but right now when we need to increase consumption, and because the country has always treated cocoa as a cash crop, we don't have any other cheaper way to deal with the cocoa so that the mass public can be able to eat it. Because I have personally made different sauces and soups, tested some South American recipes that use dark chocolates and stuff like that, and I love them. But I know that I cannot positive. Even one of my closest friends would not eat that. He would not eat that because he'd be like, "Yeah, what's this?" And it's because he specifically doesn't like sweet and savory things in one company. So he's not gonna eat sweet and sour pork. He doesn't like that kind of stuff. And many Ghanaians are like that. So now, this video is to just, like I said, illustrate what the conundrum is, what the problem is. And ideally, we should be looking to food research to improve or to increase their research into how Ghanaians can easily and cheaply consume cocoa beans. And then, if it's feasible, if it makes sense, then maybe cocoa board can be brought in and a conversation can be had with cocoa board so that we can then have cocoa beans being given to the local people at whatever price it is, and then we consume it. Now, some of you may be asking, so with this whole cocoa board thing, does that mean that if a chocolate factory, let's say Niche Chocolate, has a cocoa farm, they can't just immediately take the beans they have grown on their farm, they have processed, and they can't just take it to their facilities to chocolate? And the answer to that is no, they cannot. They cannot. They have to take it to cocoa board, and then cocoa board has to verify it, go through all its things, and then Niche Chocolates can buy it from cocoa board. But keep in mind, cocoa board pays you for the beans. I don't know if I mentioned it anywhere, but if I didn't mention, I'm saying it right now. Cocoa board pays everybody. Cocoa board pays everybody that they get the beans from. But at the end of the day, one of the answers, one of the solutions to our current problem, and even to cocoa board turning a profit, is that we need to find a way for Ghanaians to cheaply and easily access cocoa and cocoa beans and consume it as a new food or whatever it may be. And in so doing, we can increase our consumption, and then cocoa board can ask for a better price, because if the international market's not going to have it, we will have it. I hope you guys learned something new. Hopefully, I will dive more into this. Let me know what other natural resources you want me to talk about, what other things you'd like me to research into. And if you are out there, you're an expert in all of this, and you would like to have a conversation with me, you can reach out. There are certain people that I potentially have access to. It depends on if they have the time and if they are allowed to. I will talk to them about this entire thing. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something new, like I said. And as always, jump in the comment section, like, share, comment, subscribe. And as always, we go cross, Charlie. Peace.